I'm one of the so-called Bristol Seven who smashed the Elbit headquarters in Bristol on Nakba Day 2022.
Years of colonization, 74 years of apartheid, 74 years of crimes against humanity.
We were relieved we were not given a custodial sentence, but sent home on a suspended sentence. Here's our story.
I grew up in apartheid Israel to a Holocaust surviving family. I was a product of a Zionist education system. I did not know of Palestine. I did not know where it is. It was rather something far remote. I did not realize that Israel is in fact built on the top of Palestine.
My parents were born in Eastern Europe and they came into Palestine to inherit other people's land. My dad arrived when he was a baby, just after the foundation of the Zionist state. Because of Zionist forces, they were only given one option. Most of those Jews who fled from Europe and had the option to go to other places like North America and so on, they did. But the majority ended up in Palestine because that was the only option that was available for them.
Growing up, I did not have much interaction with children my age who are not from Jewish backgrounds.
Most Israeli kids are being taught to be afraid of their neighbors. Part and parcel of Zionist thinking is about that exclusive nature of Zionism, that there is us and there's them, and them will never be like us. So I usually refer to Zionism as a cult, but sometimes I refer to it as a mental disorder because it manifests as a mental disorder where people who are Zionist literally cannot see Palestinians as equal human beings. And that's part and parcel of their Zionist type of thinking. And this is something that has to be taught.
I lived in a very segregated society within the Zionist education system, and being a very kind of profound product of that education system with high expectation of me excelling in the military and becoming an officer.
Israeli citizens by law are military property when they reach the age of 17, regardless of whether they get drafted or not. So 2 months into the army, since I studied physics in university, they wanted me to be in charge of an anti-tank missile project. This is a Rafael missile that you can see being used quite heavily these days. So all I did for the first couple of months is sit in the library and read about missiles. And then I had this realization. I stopped being a soldier. Then it took almost a year and a half of fighting the system, trying to get out of there. But from my perspective, I was no longer an Israeli, not a soldier. I didn't mind what they would do. I told them, you can send me for 3 years in prison if you want, I don't care. But I'm no longer part of this game. I mean, it's your problem, not mine. You can do with it whatever you want.
After dodging the military, I was privileged enough to go to the university and meet intellectuals and individuals who were speaking about colonialism and apartheid. So I realized, I came to understand the historical forces of colonialism and imperialism, basically subjugating the indigenous people of Palestine and depriving them of their freedom, liberty, and livelihood.
The moment that I realized that there is such a notion of a military refusal and that I wasn't alone in that, then I started helping others. And at the same time, it was clear that, that I should take action alongside Palestinians. Quite early on, I also became activist with Anarchists Against the Wall. We would go on weekly demonstrations in solidarity, invited by the local villagers whose lands were being annexed and confiscated. And I was, like many others, I was beaten, I was shot at, I was arrested numerous times. I had friends. A friend was shot in the head with a rubber-coated steel bullet, Elbit made, of course. Also the adapters made by Elbit. At that demonstration, I was shot in my leg with such a bullet.
I was familiar with the term Elbit because My family was providing services to Elbit system, which is also based in Haifa. So Elbit system is a name that I knew all of my life, and it was not before 2011 that I participated in a demo in Tel Aviv for two young boys who were bombarded by a missile that was produced by Elbit and was launched by an Elbit drone in Gaza. Muhammad El-Zaza and Ibrahim El-Zaza, who passed away from that drone, and Muhammad, who came to testify in our trial.
Elbit is Israel's largest arms manufacturer, producing at least 85% of the killer drones, being used 24/7 in Gaza and also in the West Bank more recently. In the West Bank, they try out what's called less than lethal weapons, including the steel bullets, including something called the Scream, which is making a loud noise, which is Elbit made, including all kinds of like beanbags and salt bullets and different types of tear gas ammunition. I mean, there's so many things that they have been trying on us. At the same time, in Gaza, this is their whole lab for trying out their very lethal weaponry. And every time, like now, when Israel is bombing the hell out of Gaza, it is done in direct cooperation with Elbit, where this is their R&D in action.
Coming from a background of Holocaust survivors, it was very clear to me that once there are crimes against humanity that are being conducted, one should not stand aside. So this is the kind of moral imperative to which I was committed and still committed, and believe this is a kind of universal call to not to avert our gaze when we see our brothers and sisters in suffering.
Elbit in Bristol is the headquarters of Elbit's operations in the UK, which is simply the UK office of the greater Elbit, Elbit Israel. The vast majority of the directors of Elbit UK and subsidiaries here are employees who are the high-ranking officials in Elbit Israel, including the president and CEO himself, who is director of Elbit UK, and many others. The Israeli embassy to the UK and the UK ambassador to Israel were both at the opening of the new Bristol site.
Once I've moved abroad to pursue higher education, I joined the BDS campaign. And after many years of engaging in that campaign and challenging the authorities and challenging politicians and public representatives, it seems that it all led to a dead end. And at this point, it was crucial to begin to engage in direct action and to actively prevent weapons from being produced and shipped to Israel.
There used to be universal jurisdiction in the UK. We could go after Israeli war criminals. So the UK changed the law to allow for Israeli war criminals to arrive here in the UK. And this was put to the test in 2011 when Tzipi Livni was the first one who arrived, and there was an arrest warrant filed against her for war crimes. And it was the head of the public prosecution, Keir Starmer, who decided to change the status of her mission and lend her immunity. And she has more recently been elected to be director of Elbit Systems.
We know we have the full moral ground to take this action. And it's also not just any higher law, it's actually written law that allow us to stop such industries from engaging in this illegal manufacturing of weapon that is being produced for the use of genocide and war crimes.
It seems like anyone who is trying to oppose the criminals is being branded a criminal, and this is done in a systemic, deliberate way here in the UK. Yeah. They obviously changed different aspects of the law, denying us different defenses. You know, based on the Colson statute case, there was an appeal to change the law in that sense. More recently, they have appealed to change the law about consent.
At the beginning of Palestine action, there was the authorities were reluctant to take activists to court because they didn't want to shed light on the kind of murderous enterprise that they are running. But as time went by, and we in Palestine Action managed to create a critical mass of people willing to take action and putting their body on the line, the authorities are more willing to drag us to court and take away our defenses in law. When we went to court, we couldn't argue for protection of life and necessity and urgency, all of which were factors in why we've taken the action. After a 4-week trial, we were found guilty without being able to present the full motivation of what we take in action.
This genocide was in the cards. It was only a matter of time. What has happened back then is that there was already like high tension and people were already being targeted in the West Bank. Shireen Abu Akleh, the journalist, was murdered just a couple of days before our action. And the intention was to stop the manufacturing and the shipment of those murder machines to Israel for as long as we could.
As I see the entire instrument of law, as it is formulated, is the instrument of the strong. So the authorities have ultimate power. They have state power and they can use it in any way they want. But that is not something that deters me personally, because we are talking here about the most severe crimes. They are talking about the crime of genocide. My soul has not been so abused that I have forgotten that my basic duty is to care for my brothers and sisters. Our blood is already mixed with the blood of Palestinians. We are all in the same struggle, and if we have to go to prison, that's just a continuation of the struggle. If we are not taking action, we are far worse than going to prison. We carry the prison within ourselves.
When I was asked to apologize on the stand, I said that I apologize to the people of Gaza. I apologize that I was not able to avert that genocide that is happening right in front of our eyes. That myself and others probably have not been successful, and that is what I deeply regret.
Freedom is not going to bring itself. We must be the midwife of freedom, even if it has to pay a price. And nothing is being born without pain. And we are going to take pride in the action we've taken. We have smashed into the building, we have spilled paint, we have barricaded ourselves, we managed to destroy anything we saw our way, and we are very proud of it. And this is how things has to be done. And hopefully people will follow suit to dismantle the war machine and to shut Elbit down.